The Joe Rogan Experience.
When on Twitter, I see a clip taken completely out of context about a bit about taking things out of context. It's like life had like looped back on itself. You were talking about things being taken out of context and they were taking it out of context. They had like cut it.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait. I remember that very differently. Because I remember things that I hear pretty well. And I was like, went back and I was like, wait, he's talking about things being taken out of context and they're taking it out of context.
Yeah, they don't care. But there's always some people that are just, this is not in good faith. Everything they're doing is just trying to find something wrong with everything you're doing. And it's usually people that their life is a mess. There's no one who does that, who is a healthy, accomplished person who has great relationships in their life and is doing really well at some skill or chosen profession that they enjoy very much.
Right.
They're not fulfilled.
Right.
They're
Or
not
people are
having a good
trying
life.
to politicize something.
Yeah.
Or they're trying to get clicks off your name.
There's a lot of that for sure. So there's a business in that. And then there's also people that are doing, like MSNBC did this recently. And this has gotten so popular that my fucking stepdad contacted me to tell me he's happy that I'm suing MSNBC. I'm like, I'm not suing MSNBC. But this is what MSNBC did. They took a clip of me talking about Tulsi Gabbard and they edited it up and made it look like I was saying great things about Kamala Harris.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
You and I have been mashed up on other stuff and AI, and I don't want to, like you said, we don't want to draw attention that they got taken off the internet, thank goodness, but it was bullshit. It was it was AI and mashup.
Yeah, there's a lot of AI ads with us.
They did that about politics?
Yes, they did it about politics, but they didn't do it like AI. They just deceptively edited the things that I was saying, took it completely out of context where I was talking about, first of all, I was talking about Tulsi Gabbard, and then I was talking about that the media behind Kamala Harris, all this surge and all these people just deciding that she's good, she could win. And they put the two of those together and made it seem like I was praising Kamala Harris and saying a bunch of things that aren't even true about her. Like I was talking about Tulsi Gabbard being a congresswoman for 8 years and about how she served overseas, two deployments in medical units dealing with people who were blown up from the war. Like that's not something Kamala Harris did. It's something Tulsi Gabbard did. I was just saying things about her, and they put it out there as a clip of me praising Kamala Harris. But they don't care about the truth. They just want a narrative to get out there amongst enough people, because most people are just surface readers, right? They read a headline, and I'd be guilty of that many times. You read a headline, oh, I know what that is, and then you shut your laptop. I got it now. I got the whole. So if you read an article that says, Andrew Schultz is a liar, like, oh, he's a liar. I heard he's a liar, and then you just start repeating he's a liar. It doesn't have to be real. And so all they have to do with, like, how many people are actually going to watch my Netflix special? Well, it was a lot, but compared to the amount of people in the country, not a lot. A small percentage. So all you have to do is take something out of context from someone who's never going to watch it in the first place, put it in front of them, like, oh, that piece of shit. Can't believe he said that. Even though I'm literally talking about things being taken out of context.
The part about this is so frustrating to me is that, like, at some point, especially as a scientist, right? Like, that's data selection, right? Like, if you look at data and you look at scientific experimentation, it starts with a question, you generate a hypothesis, you collect data, you publish the results, and you get to state your conclusions. Now let's talk about what you're talking about. In the world of science, I don't think there's a lot of outright data fraud, but a lot of experiments that don't work, people come up with excuses to eliminate
But
those
there is
data.
some data fraud, right?
Yeah, there certainly is some data
fraud.
The
amyloid plaques thing with
There's certainly some
Alzheimer's.
data fraud, and there's a range of underlying reasons. One of the more common reasons that people don't talk about, which is something to really strongly inoculate in laboratories against, is when a laboratory is known for doing very, very good work, oftentimes the graduate students and postdocs that go there feel like they need to give the boss the result. So sometimes it's unbeknownst to the person running the lab. There have been a lot of cases in recent years of papers being discovered as having major issues, and that's like, well, do you go after the lab head or do you go after the person who did it? Lab heads are responsible for everything in their lab. AI is helping with this because you can scan data and look at things, but ambition is a dangerous thing, if somebody puts ambition ahead of accuracy.
Sure.
Okay. So there's that kind of thing. And then there's outright data fraud. I mean, there was this nanotechnologist guy from some years back, I think his last name was Schoen, who had like 20 papers in Science and Nature in 2 years. And it turns out he wasn't even bothering to, he was fabricating data the papers were all retracted, and I don't know what he's doing now, but the noise plots, the random noise plots in these papers were the way he got caught. What it turned out is that, I mean, I'm chuckling because it's like he was so lazy, ambitious, but so lazy that he didn't even bother to use new random noise plots from one paper to the next. So somebody said, wait, random should be random. Why is it the same in these two papers? Boom, and then the whole thing unraveled.
Wow.
Eventually.
So lazy.
So he was particularly ambitious, lazy, and that was outright fraud.
Right.
There are all sorts of other cases and things like that. And you know, there's people who make this their sport to talk about. Most scientists are trying to get the correct answers. I do believe that. Most scientists have good faith. They're trying to get the answers. But it's hard. Science is hard. Now, what you're talking about, to me, sounds like people deliberately grabbing from the palette of paints that is the words that are spoken by anybody on the internet, especially people with podcasts, you or me or anybody else, and then literally cutting and pasting things together to create a story which is fiction.
Do you know who Pink Trip is?
No.
You don't know Pink Trip? Pink Trip is hilarious. He's a guy on the internet who takes clips of podcasts and creates narratives of things that are totally not happening.
Oh yeah, I've seen some of you.
There's one recently, me and Tucker Carlson are having an argument.
I haven't seen that one.
It's good. Somebody sent it to me. Who fucking sent it? See if you can find it.
Yeah, I remember one of you and Elon, several perhaps. Yeah, so I know that.
So
Pink
Trip is
Pink Trips.
No, it's a dude.
Oh, okay.
His name is Pink. So here it is, Pink Trip. So it's visible.
What? No.
Space is real.
Are you joking?
You're a science denier.
What? Stop.
The bodies of science have bestowed the truth. If you ignore
If I get another fucking lecture from you, I'm gonna go crazy.
When did you start having this opinion?
Shut the fuck up, bitch. You're a fucking idiot.
Don't do that anymore.
What are you gonna do about it, bitch? What are you gonna do about it? You are literally powerless.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do whatever I want. What are you gonna do about it?
You could get your ass kicked.
Are you threatening me?
Yeah. I think you are a far-right, white supremacist,
I have
racist.
no respect for you. You're like my dog. Does it ever occur to you that you're like disgusting? Just like vulgar, just like a pig. If I were to sort of narrow down my bigotries, it's like people like you, I just think you're disgusting. I'm better with it.
So these are actual spoken words kludged together.
Yeah. About completely different things. It's really masterful. Do you want to die? Watch.
Freak. If I take a 9mm round or 7.62 by 39 and shoot you, can you catch the bullet?
You can't do that.
What are you gonna do about it?
I got a bigger one.
Why would you hide that? That's just wrong. That's not fair.
Isn't that funny? But this is funny, right?
Right.
He does that with a lot of stuff, like people pretending to be in love with me, makes it like there's a romance between
So
like
good.
me and different people. But that's funny. That's art, right? He's making a story that doesn't exist. It's really funny, right? But there's people that do it just to either, in this case, it was to promote Kamala Harris, to get the passive listener, the people that are, the casual, to go, oh wow, Joe Rogan likes Kamala Harris.
I heard you're endorsing and not endorsing all sorts of people.
Yeah,
And,
you can't even say I like somebody without it being an endorsement and people getting mad. But I think the MAGA people are happy now that Robert F. Kennedy is now with Trump. So I think
they've unified the belts.
Yeah, I think we're in a very weird time with the media, and I think truth is super important. And I think someone that's willing to do something like that, that's a real offense. It's a real offense. It's not a small thing. It's a real lie, and it's a lie that changes other people's opinion. You take what's perceived to be an influential person and you distort their views in either a way to shame them, make them look bad, or to promote someone else. Like, that's a real lie. That's a dangerous lie. It's a real offense, and I think that there's no laws against that right now. It's except libel law. I mean, you could take someone to court, I guess, but it's a real bad thing. It's a real gross lie, and it's used right now to manipulate public opinion.
Yeah, completely out of context. In the example you gave.
Yeah.
And certainly I'm familiar with examples where context is completely cut off at the point where
Yeah.
it leads to a false conclusion.
Oh, sure.
Like where the story is completely different. The reason I gave the counterexample of science is, when you're trained as a scientist, you're trained to try and parse what's real and what's not real and give the best, version of that you can. And then you are allowed to state your conclusions. But I have a question. At what point do you think the general public will come to understand that this is the way that a lot of things that they see out there are constructed to some degree or another, and stop actually believing it?
It depends on who the public is. That this is the issue right now with boomers, right? Old liberals in particular. All they do is watch the news and read the newspaper, and whatever's printed, they believe. And it's very difficult to get them to consider, like, hey, maybe someone's lying. Maybe there's propaganda campaigns. Maybe there's like this widespread media narrative that they're pushing because corporations are behind it and advertising is behind it, and they're figuring out a way to manipulate the public opinion on things. It's very hard to get old boomers to believe that,
Right.
Because they're old. Okay, so they're set in their ways. Their mind has formed around, I am a liberal. I am a Democrat. I've been a Democrat my whole life. This is how I feel about these issues. This is my community. This is my tribe. These are my people. And the news says this, and I'm with them. And oh, great, we're up in the polls now. And for them, it's like they're on a team. It might as well be the Dolphins versus the Raiders. It's the same kind of mentality in their head. And they don't want to be challenged. That little part of their brain that exists when you challenge yourself and do things you don't want to do, that bitch is shriveled up to almost nothing. And they're real boring, and their lives are entirely excited by political discourse.
Do you think it's all boomers?
Yeah, it's mostly boomers. I think young people are way less likely to buy into bullshit now. There's young people that are ideologically captured, for sure. You see that both with right-wing people and with left-wing people.
Sorry, I mean, do you think that all boomers believe in the traditional media like
yes.
that?
It's mostly because they grew up with it. Yeah. They're the ones. The kids today, they don't buy it at all. Like Gen Z kids and whatever the fuck what's the newest? What's the latest?
Gen Z.
Whatever these kids are.
Yeah.
These young kids coming up today, like people in their 20s, they don't believe it at all.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll non-reluctantly tell you, my dad and I, over the years, like we had some early issues and we resolved them and we're good now. But when some not so kind press came out about me, they interviewed a lot of people. They interviewed a lot of people from my high school class and friends and coworkers, and then cherry picked for the story they wanted to create. But they talked to my dad, okay? And I would not put my dad into the political camp that you described, or any camp really. But he's a first-generation immigrant, moved here from Argentina, did his PhD under a scholarship from the Navy. It was like a story of an immigrant who came here and became a scientist.
America's dream.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of science to do in Argentina. There's not a lot of funding for it, right? So came here. I would say that when they reached out to him, he was like, oh yeah, the reporter was super nice. They asked me all these questions. And then he called me. He was like, I'm shocked. I didn't say that. That was completely flipped and twisted, and that and I said,
you got to record those kind of conversations.
And I said, it's okay. It's okay. In fact, and that changed his perception. I can't speak for him, but based on conversations we've had since, changed his perception. He was like, I can't believe this, that they would sort of leverage this for a false narrative.
You're allowed to do it for whatever reason. I have a friend who used to work at New York Times that said they were encouraged to do it. They were encouraged to just try to take someone down. Like that was the whole idea of a piece. Yeah.
Well, that was made clear by the fact that many people reached out and were like, I had the best conversation with this person. Or when I was a kid, I grew up skateboarding and I rode for this brand, Thunder and Spitfire, and my team manager was interviewed. And then he called me afterwards and he said, yeah, it was kind of weird. Like I kept telling him the story that, that they had heard about you on podcasts over and over, and they kept poking and probing, trying to get me. And he said, that's what happened. Andrew called me that day and said, help me, I need to get out of this place, et cetera, et cetera. And he was like, I don't get it. And I was like, listen, Shrugi, like that's what we call him, Steve Rugi. I go, listen, like, thanks for talking to her, but it's just the way it works.
It's not about...
Like, they weren't really interested in the truth. They were interested in pulling out certain language. An ex-girlfriend of mine said the same thing. Like, I talked to her and I told her, like, what a great relationship we had. And then, like, what she printed kind of alluded to something kind of slightly different. And I just said, listen, thanks for talking to him. Like, the goal is to collect a bunch of data. Like, this is where I compare it to science, my domain. Take a bunch of data, cherry pick only the things that could work if those only were true, and some of them are just outright lies, and then publish that, that is data fraud.